In this video, I'll be dining with the people China has been trying to destroy for decades.
These are sheep lungs completely full of milk. This is one of the most unique recipes that exists in the world, and I didn't know it was a Uyghur recipe until today.
These are the Uyghur Muslims.
It's estimated at least 1 million Uyghurs have been held in internment camps in Xinjiang.
Mahaba Saleh hasn't heard from her sister for 5 years.
An Australian man has been reunited with his wife and son more than 3 years after they were stopped from leaving China.
For years, we've heard stories of the Uyghur people enduring a cultural genocide at the hands of a powerful state. But who are the Uyghurs? Today, I'm on a mission to connect directly with one of the world's largest Uyghur communities.
So many people around the world, they've heard that word Uyghur, but they don't really know what to connect to it. For you, what does it mean to be Uyghur?
I want to understand their lives,
How did you learn to cook like this? Is this something that was passed down from generation to generation?
their struggles,
We have 2 brothers. We don't know where they are.
and as always, their food.
If you smoke, your lungs will turn black. If you inhale milk, that's what's happening here.
It all starts with the breakfast that's made the Uyghur way.
So this is called dao panji, which literally translates from Chinese as big plate of chicken.
At a local restaurant serving traditional Uyghur recipes, our chef sets a wok on fire, glazes it with a generous pour of oil, and drops in a handful of sugar and Szechuan peppers. He stirs until the sugar crystallizes, then tosses in chicken, onion, and a combination of spices that create Da Panji's signature flavor: chilies, anise, allspice, cumin, cloves, orange zest, cardamom, and cinnamon. After, tomato paste, chili paste, and garlic follow suit.
Overall, I have enjoyed the food experiences I've had in Kazakhstan. That said, the flavor comes from salt, pepper, garlic, and onion, and then that's it for everything. So it is nice to see kind of a change of pace when it comes to seasonings in this country.
Our chef adds chunks of potato and even more seasonings in the form of MSG, salt, Chinese vinegar, and soy sauce. He fills the wok with water, allowing the ingredients to simmer until they soften.
Kazakhs are kind of connoisseurs of meat that they don't want to have spices on top. They want to taste where that sheep has been grazing. Whereas Uyghurs, because they live side by side with Chinese for so many centuries, have adapted those spicy flavors.
The chef finishes his flavor-packed work of art with bell peppers. Then he plates it with raw onion rings.
So this is this kind of hearty meal that was invented in Western China for truck drivers. How do you feed a big group of hungry men as fast as possible? This is usually not shared between 2 people.
Yeah, this is for like 8 people right here.
This erudite dude is Dennis, a California native who spent over a decade in Kazakhstan.
When I was in high school, I was 17 years old, and I found an exchange program to Kazakhstan. And I thought, that sounds like fun. Let's do it. This is 2005, the year before Borat came out. So when I headed off, people thought I was going to Afghanistan. They didn't even know about Boratstan.
Sure, right.
With near-perfect Russian and functional Kazakh, Dennis runs a touring company in Almaty. Today, I am his client.
One of my missions today that you're going to help me with is learning more about the Uyghur people here in Kazakhstan. Now, there are a lot of Uyghur folks in China, but it's not so easy to go to those areas, especially with a camera. So the second best option is to come here. And we're starting with this.
So we'll probably put some rice on our plates here first, just to soak up the juices from the dao panji. And then you want to get some of the hot peppers.
Should we try some of this red sauce with the rice?
That's actually going to add most of the flavor, so we should try to scoop up as much of that as possible.
Yeah. It smells good. All right.
My favorite part is always that kind of tongue-numbing spice from the Szechuan pepper.
You feel that already?
My tongue is starting to fall asleep because of that.
It's warm in my mouth. You can taste the star anise.
The chicken is a little bit harder because here they're so used to eating meat and chicken with bones in it. So you kind of just got to pick up a piece and gnaw around it.
What do you think that is?
A big glob of fatty chicken.
Ass?
There's only one way to find out.
Okay. Not the ass, but that's really nice. Very braised, tender. This is delicious. Chicken is soft and juicy. At least the pieces I have here taste like dark meat. It pairs beautifully with the rice, that nice heavy spice and potatoes too. A little bit of everything in one meal. And also my first time this trip having chicken.
Yeah, it tends to be pretty focused on the dark meats, the lamb and the camel. Now Uyghurs like that too, because Uyghurs are still a Central Asian people, so a lot of their cuisine has overlap with the Kazakhs. Here we're seeing more of that Sichuan Chinese influence.
Soon we'll visit a local Uyghur home and treat our taste buds to some truly distinct Uyghur dishes, including the slightly bizarre sheep lungs filled with milk.
Who thought to pour milk into a sheep's lungs?
But before that, a quick word for the sponsor of this video, BetterHelp.
Burnout. We have all been there. One minute you're managing everything like a champ, and the next you're running on empty and feeling completely checked out. I myself have been ground down by too much work. Oh no, look at this pie chart. There's way too much blue. Travel.
I don't know. I'm doing my best here.
Stress. And relationships.
Oh, I thought you wanted a kiss. I misread that. I'm sorry.
But in those moments, therapy can help. Therapy gave me space to figure out what was really going on and help me hit the reset button. It's not just about stress. It's about learning how to handle everything before it completely drains you. If you've ever felt like life is just piling on and you can't keep up, therapy can be that reset button, and you can do it with BetterHelp. BetterHelp is on a mission to make therapy easy and accessible to start. They connect you with licensed therapists who specialize in everything from burnout to stress management and more. You can even journal on the platform, and they offer group sessions on all kinds of topics, from managing stress to dealing with anxiety. Getting started with BetterHelp is simple. Just fill out a quick questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in a few days. And if your first therapist isn't quite right, no problem. You can keep switching until you find someone you connect with. With BetterHelp, you're getting access to qualified therapists on an easy-to-use platform with a 4.5-star rating from over 7,000 reviews on Trustpilot. So that's how you know it's legit. If you're feeling burned out or like you could use some extra support, click the link in our description or scan the QR code or go to betterhelp.com/besteverfood. Use the code BestEverFoodReviewShow for a special discount on your first month of therapy. Don't let burnout ruin your life. Take control today with BetterHelp. Just go to betterhelp.com/besteverfood or scan the QR code to get started. Now, back to the show.
Aside from their food, to understand where the Uyghurs are now, we must understand their history and the struggles they've endured to preserve these traditions. In 2018, Google witnessed a sharp escalation in searches for the word Uyghur. This wave occurred right after the United Nations reported
China is holding over 1 million ethnic Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities in what resembles a massive internment camp in the western Xinjiang Autonomous Region.
This is the largest scale of such an act since World War II. Though the name is new to many, the Uyghurs are descendants of Turkic ethnic groups that have dwelled in the Tarim Basin since the Bronze Age. They practice Islam for 1,000 years. These days, there are about 14 million Uyghurs worldwide. 11 million reside in China, while many of the rest can be found in nearby Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan.
From my research, what I've seen is that about 200,000 Uyghur people live in Kazakhstan.
That's the largest Uyghur population outside of China. So we have this huge community here, and most of them can trace their roots back to the 19th century when there were some wars happening in Xinjiang, Western China, and the Russian Empire opened up its gates for Uyghurs to come to settle here.
In the 18th century, the Qing dynasty conquered the region known as Xinjiang. This included the Tarim Basin. The Uyghurs were part of a revolt against the Qing government that was soon suppressed with scorched earth tactics and mass executions, leading to a wave of Uyghur migration into Kazakhstan and nearby countries. But this is not all. That led to over 1 million Uyghurs being placed in detention camps. To learn more, we visit Kurvanjan.
Nice to meet you. Again, we shook hands off camera. Dennis, nice to meet you again.
Sunny, right?
We ate together earlier.
Kurvanjan was a vigorous Uyghur activist in his younger years. These days, he tells the story of his people through food and catering.
We get special orders to deliver to weddings, deliver to people at home. He's been working away at this for 30 years. Him and his partner Gulya, they started at the bazaar, just a small little operation, and through word of mouth, it's grown, and now this is a full-time business.
Right here, you have Monty.
Monty is easily one of the most common street foods in Kazakhstan. Minced beef or lamb, seasoned with black pepper, cumin, and salt, encased in a flour dough and steamed until soft.
Is there such thing as a Uyghur version of Monty?
What we have here, he says, is the classic Monty with just the beef and the onions, but the real Uyghur take is adding the pumpkin.
What about this right here, this condiment? Hey, that is the international language.
Chili bean paste is a beloved condiment on Uyghur dining tables.
Let me just pile this condiment inside.
If your taste buds survive the initial heat blast, you might pick up on notes of garlic, pepper, chilies, sesame, cumin, and vinegar.
Be careful, that's a lot.
My middle name is too much. The heat was nothing at first, and it's a warm glow. It keeps going. I think I'm gonna sneeze.
Just don't seize on the Monty. These are precious.
Okay, it's not too bad, but it's a nice glowing heat, and I gotta say, most of the Kazakh food I've had, zero spiciness, so it's good to switch it up here. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit more. Toss it back.
Bon appetit.
Thank you. I have an international flight tonight. I believe I will regret that.
Kurvanjan often sells his Monty at a nearby bazaar, but today, he's decided to shake up the menu with an exclusive Uyghur dish.
It's kind of like a Uyghur calzone.
Ooh, calzone. You've got my attention.
His family helps to set the recipe in motion.
I feel like so many people around the world these days, especially in the USA, they've heard that word Uyghur, but they don't really know what to connect to it. They don't know what customs, what foods, what faces are Uyghur. For you, what does it mean to be Uyghur?
Уйгуры — это древнетюркский народ.
The Uyghurs, he says, are a people with a proud history. They go back to the medieval period when there was a Uyghur Khani. When Genghis Khan was writing his letters, they were using a Uyghur alphabet.
As the largest Turkic Muslim group in China, the Uyghurs stand out for steadfastly preserving their culture and resisting assimilation into Chinese society. This is reflected in the way they speak, the way they dress, and their faith, observing daily prayers, fasting, and taking part in religious festivals.
Ну, уйгуры чем отличаются?
He says, we're fearless. We'll do anything. We're hardworking. If you look at any kitchen in Almaty, half of the kitchens are run by Uyghurs. We're proud of that. We're proud of our food. We're proud of our arts. There's a Uyghur theater here in Almaty that's the only one in the world. We have that kind of joie de vivre, maybe, that sets us apart from other people in Central Asia.
Uyghurs are traditionally celebrated for their craftsmanship and trading skills, especially in the ancient time of the Silk Road. But as they drift across the globe, they pick up any work that can sustain their families. Kurvanjan's culinary expertise was passed down by his parents.
Манты горячие фирменные, манты с мясом, манты прямые поставки, товарки манты.
When Kurvanjan was growing up here, this was just a collective farm, a Soviet-style farm where cows were grazing. But starting in the late 80s, 90s, capitalism came to Kazakhstan and the bazaar took over this whole area. And now this is one of the biggest employers in the entire country. It's a universal kind of market where anything can be found. People from around the country come here to buy whatever they need, whether it's sewing needles or furniture. There are more than a dozen different bazaars here. He knows every spot like the back of his hand.
Here, you have something special. Now, I know usually you're out here selling the manti, but today you switched up the menu. Can you tell me what we're serving today?
Обычно мы продаем манты фирменные.
Today we're going to be selling gushnan, which is a kind of meat pie.
So he puts it in the cooler so they stay hot. Oh, wow. Right now it's in the plastic bag and it is still crazy hot. So this is an original Uyghur dish, is that correct?
100% Uyghur dish.
Can you walk me through the recipe of how to make this?
First, they start by making the dough. That's just flour and water, a little bit of oil. They then grind the meat by hand, and then they're gonna be putting in some spices. That's salt, that's pepper, that's their secret ingredient called hajou, which is like Sichuan pepper. And then they have something they call Chinese salt. Could you guess what it is?
Salt.
MSG.
Oh, okay. Come on. I should have known that.
So they put that all in there, mix it together, put it inside the dough, in the deep fryer, steam it a little bit, then it's ready to go.
The structure, it's big, it's heavy. It's got a thicker dough than I thought. I thought it'd be more flaky, but it's pretty robust. It holds together fine.
Его сразу парить.
It's the fine art of gushnan. If you only steam it, then it's going to be like manti. If you were to fry it until the meat were done, then the dough is going to be all dry and flaky and it's not going to work out. So this is the fine balance we're striking. Normally they serve it as like a big pie that you can cut like a pizza. This is truly like a calzone and I'm going to just like talkify it.
Sure, it's like the street food version then. I got a lot of dough on that one. I'm not gonna lie.
Вот так, скласть его кушать.
You said I'm doing the right way.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I've been here long enough. I've learned how to do it.
Okay, because then you can go right for the underbelly right here. Though the crust, the outside is very good. It's almost like al dente. It's got some nice doughy bite to it. Now I'm going for the guts.
Now, they're generous with the onions.
That's delicious. The flavor is very similar to that of a manti, but the presentation, the vehicle, the vessel is completely different. Very impressive.
Although his kitchen usually caters to the Kazakh palate, soon Kurvanjan's sister will be whipping up an authentic home-cooked Uyghur meal. A meal complete with what I call animalized tofu.
Before we go on, I want to back up a little bit and just talk about what is Uyghur food. For you, how would you characterize Uyghur food? What separates it from any other type of cuisine?
Ну, уйгурская кухня, мы все уйгуры любим покушать.
What's special about Uyghur food is the heart that we put into it. Ingredients are very simple. It's meat, it's dough, it's some vegetables, but the things we can do with that are multiple.
Uyghur cuisine is a melting pot of Central Asian and Chinese influences. You'll find a lot of beef and lamb alongside various types of flatbread, a lot of rice, and hand-pulled noodles. Since it's a Muslim community, Uyghur dishes are halal, meaning no pork.
Ну, вообще вот у нас...
He says we're Soviet Uyghurs because we grew up in the Soviet Union, and a lot of the spices that we now use, even as something as simple as black pepper, but also like that Sichuan pepper, we never used to use that before. The dishes used to be much simpler, but over time those dishes started to come here from China, from other places, and now the cuisine has started to evolve.
So if you went to China now, do you think you would recognize the Uyghur food as being Uyghur food?
В данный момент...
He's been there years ago, and what he noticed is that the level of the food there is actually even higher. And they have dishes that they prepare there that have been lost here in Kazakhstan.
So who does it better?
У меня дома вкуснее.
He said whatever he cooks at home is the best.
У меня мама вкуснее.
Fair. So from here, we are going to be trying a kind of a classic Uyghur food, one of the more iconic Uyghur foods. That is the lagman. Hey, okay, I gotta say, this looks incredible. First of all, the biggest tea I've ever seen in my life.
In my life тоже.
So the way they make this is they make a super concentrated black tea, add some salt, and then they add in milk, and you see what's floating there on top?
Yeah.
It's like a clotted cream that they call kaymak. I love it. I usually slurp down all the cream first, and then I go for the tea.
That is a unique sensation. It's like sipping like a floating egg white or something that's very, very hot. It's a great way to start the meal. So we have the lagman in front of us right now with a handful of noodles and then all kinds of toppings on here. What is the secret behind a good lagman?
Lagman is the most popular Uyghur dish in Kazakhstan. It starts with a huge block of dough made of flour, egg, salt, and water. Asigul flattens the dough using her knuckles, then cuts it into thin strands.
First of all, it's about the dough. There's this very subtle understanding you have to have about how much salt to put in, whether to put eggs or not, because you're creating this bendy, elastic product, and the elasticity is very specific how they make that.
She patiently rolls out each strand multiple times until they're as thin as a chopstick. Then they're ready for pulling.
How did you learn to cook like this? Is this something that was passed down from generation to generation, from YouTube tutorials?
Всему, что я умею в жизни.
Everything I've learned in life, not just cooking, I learned from my mama. They were all at home all the time. Mama was a housewife, 6 kids at home running around, and they just watched how she did it, and she absorbed it through life experience.
Asigul drops the noodles into a pot of boiling water and lets them cook. In the meantime, she prepares the noodle toppings. Oil, beef fat, and chopped beef go into a hot wok, followed by onion, salt, and a generous amount of garlic spears. She stirs them, then adds MSG, pepper, ginger powder, fresh tomato, and chili paste. After pouring in some water, she lets the mixture simmer while she retrieves the noodles from the pot. Returning to the wok, Asigul finishes the dish with fresh bell pepper, celery, and garlic. But that is just one half of our noodle toppings. The other half is scrambled eggs with salt and plenty of chives.
Ready?
Начнем.
Oh, it looks delicious.
Ложан, ложи.
Right, so he says, don't forget about the lajan, the spicy sauce.
This is the same chili oil that we had earlier with the Monty this morning. So I'm mixing that. Oh my gosh, these noodles are so thick and dense.
Yeah, those homemade noodles. That's what's up.
It's an incredible blend. I love it with the spice. A little bit of a kick, but not too much. It's hard to explain the flavor. There's so much going on. The noodles themselves are kind of greasy, almost oily. El dente is the wrong word. It's just like a thick, hearty noodle that's got some nice bite to it. And the more you move it, the more you toss it around the bowl, the more slathered with oil it gets. Then on the side, we've got, yeah, some of those vegetables that taste super fresh. The beef is tender and delicious. I mean, I love this. You know, I'm curious, how do you think Uyghur cooking has influenced food in Kazakhstan?
Это, да, интересный вопрос.
The word
конечно.
Uyghur has become
Лагман,
almost like
по-моему.
shorthand for quality when it comes to food. So people call him and they say, are your manti Uyghur style? That means it's gonna be top notch. So all these dishes, whether it's lagman, whether it's the manti selling, it's the goshlan, it's become part of the broader Kazakhstani cuisine.
It's amazing considering the population of Uyghur people in this country. It's 1% or less, but they've had that profound of an influence. I can see why people like this. This is one of my favorite things I've eaten so far since stepping foot into this country. But then there's this.
Sheep lungs filled with milk is quite literally what this dish is all about. Asigul prepares the filling by diluting a block of dough made from flour, egg, and salt. She strains the dough to collect the liquid, then adds cow milk, oil, eggs, and salt. Once well mixed, this blend is funneled into the empty spaces inside the sheep's lungs. Asigul massages and blows inside the lungs to clear out the air pockets, making space for more milk.
Right now, she's just finished pouring in all the milk. Now she's slipping in a potato. This is a potato cork meant to keep all the liquids and fluids inside of the lungs.
Чтобы он не отпускал.
She's told me to take it and hold it, and she said, for Tukan, please hold it tight. Imagine you just took the deepest breath possible, like, And then imagine all that was full of milk. That's what's happening here. This is one of the most unique recipes that exists in the world, and I didn't know it was a Uyghur recipe until today. From here, it's ready to be cooked. These are gonna be boiled for 2 hours, and then they'll be ready to eat. Who thought to pour milk into a sheep's lungs?
Добавь к этому еще
It's basically the art of making people stuffed. Kazakhs, when they take the organ meat, they'll just do a stir fry.
Right.
And that's great, that's delicious, good for them, but you can only feed so many people with that. But if you take the same organs and you stuff them with stuff, people are gonna be more stuffed.
That adds up to me. I buy it. Oh yeah. Your fork passes through it just like a 1-inch piece of tofu. You guys should make a company where you take vegan products and then you animalize them.
Уйгурский тофу буду говорить.
He said he's gonna use that from now on. Whenever people ask, I'll say it's the Uyghur tofu.
Yeah. It's great.
You know, honestly, you give that to a vegan, there's not a chance anybody would guess that was a lung.
No. So it's got a certain like mushiness to it. I feel like I can taste a hint of creaminess from the dairy, but I also can feel the dough that's inside of there too. There's nothing gamey or lungy about it.
Почему хлеб чувствуется?
We saw how they were making it, where they took that dough and they turned it back into this watery, doughy solution, and that's what they poured into it, right? So what that means is that basically they're transforming the lungs into a glutinous product. It's like, how do you turn an animal into bread? This is Uyghur sheep bread.
That's a great way to put it. Today, for me, has been really eye-opening. As I said before, I've heard so much about Uyghur people, but now I get to hang out with you guys for the day. I get to try all your food and learn so much about the Uyghur people. And I think it would be valuable for people around the world to also know more about who these people are and what they've gone through and what they're going through now. And this is something I wanted to ask you more about, which is in China. I'm wondering if you could explain to me a little bit more about what is currently happening to the Uyghur people living there.
Ну, Китай, то, что проблема с уйгурами, это...
It's a very painful thing for Uyghurs all over the world because they've watched slowly what's happened, not just in the last few years, but through generations of how their culture, their religion is being lost and how it's being persecuted by the Chinese state.
The Uyghur migration from China started in the late 19th century. The largest exodus to Kazakhstan came about between the 1950s and 1960s. Among those who left were Kurvan Jan's parents. In 1955, after failed Uyghur efforts to gain independence, the Xinjiang region became China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, like we see today. As the dominant ethnic group in the region, the Uyghurs' resistance to adopting Chinese culture and their pursuit for independence prompted the Chinese government to enforce assimilation. China promoted Han migration, increasing the population of China's biggest ethnic group in Xinjiang from about 7% in the 1950s to over 40% in the year 2000.
When he went there years ago, on the streets he would see Uyghur people sweeping the street, Uyghur people working, shining shoes. Went back in a few years, they had all been replaced by Han Chinese.
This shift fueled decades-long ethnic tensions between Uyghurs and Han Chinese, culminating in one of the deadliest clashes in China's modern history known as the 2009 Urumqi riots. The result, 200 dead and 1,700 injured. The Chinese government framed the riots as terrorism and religious extremism, responding with escalating surveillance and military control over the Uyghur people.
Ну, задача у них же как
The Communist Party wants to extinguish Islam, wants to extinguish religion. They say we can't even use the Muslim greeting, Assalamu alaikum, to greet each other anymore. We can't grow beards. Any external marker of Islam is a potential threat that they could be then put in prison.
Since 2017, China's crackdown has intensified with the demolition of over 2,000 Islamic structures, the forced separation of hundreds of thousands of children from their parents, and the detention of around 1 million ethnic Uyghurs in what resembles a massive internment camp shrouded in secrecy. That, according to the 2018 report by the United Nations Human Rights Office.
This is the first time that the UN, in chilling detail, has described the pattern of widespread and systematic abuses.
In 2022, the same office once again raised concerns about serious human rights violations against Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang. China's representative denied both accusations.
Why aren't more Chinese Uyghurs trying to escape or come here to Kazakhstan?
What it seems like is that the Chinese government is just not letting the Uyghur people or Muslim people out of the country.
Jesus.
Maybe they're not being given passports, maybe they're not being given visas, but they're basically being kept inside of a prison.
Все мы переживаем, потому что какого уйгура
And one of
не
the
возьмите,
most
всё
difficult
равно.
things is that we have relatives who are left over there. We have 2 brothers who are still in Xinjiang. We haven't heard from them. We don't know where they are. And that's the difficult part, is just not knowing.
It seems that conditions remain the same or get worse every year there. So why do you think there's not more of an international cry for action?
Поэтому вот сейчас говорят, живут
Because it's being covered up. Just as you look at TV, and what China shows are happy dancing Uyghurs. They project these images of Uyghurs being totally satisfied with their situation there, so people buy it. But at the same time, their entire way of life is being wiped out.
When I hear them both speak, they sound hopeless, which is understandable. China is a massive, powerful country that makes a lot of money for a lot of people, and they have profound influence. It's hard to imagine what any outside force could do about what's happening there. And I guess my last question is, what do you think could be done?
Демократии не будет в Китае, пока.
This is the first thing, maybe the only thing we can do is just pray. Just pray that something will change. Until there's some kind of democracy in China, until there's some kind of major change in China, we don't feel like we have a lot of hope for things to change. I would say, one hope that I see is that people like them here in Almaty in Kazakhstan can tell this story. I know that you would love to be able to go to China and talk to Uyghurs there.
Yeah, of course.
Right? But it's impossible for us to really get a true picture of what's happening there. Kazakhstan has been the place where people can come to actually hear their stories. And that's the first step, right? Is just actually telling their stories and getting people to know about it. And the more that people know about it, the more pressure there will be on China. I think I've already seen in the last few years that China has realized that the whole world was watching, and a lot of those camps are being shut down.
Yeah, absolutely right. The first step is just awareness. I just want to say thank you so much for being open and being willing to speak on a very, very difficult topic that affects and touches both of you deeply. So thank you.
Hungry for more fun food videos? Join me at More Best Ever Food Review Show, a channel that's unfiltered, raw, half the quality, and twice the fun.
Could you walk away and come back? Oh, look, the server.
Subscribe now and you probably won't regret it.
And that is the end of our Kazakhstan series. I want to say a huge thank you to Dennis for joining me today. Thank you.
Dude, my pleasure.
And you can actually book Dennis for a tour here in Kazakhstan. He speaks English, he speaks Russian, he speaks Kazakh. This guy knows his way around this place. You will not find somebody more knowledgeable than him. Go to his website now, book a tour, and experience the real Kazakhstan. That could be like a tagline for your website.
Experience the real Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
It's very nice.
Otherwise, that is it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Peace. I say peace like that in a way. So, should we do it again?
Yeah.
No, it's okay. Let's go. This way. On to more adventures. We need to go to another stand.